Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'll be reviewing the film Elio. And in the second half, I'll be reviewing the live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. So starting off with Elio, look, I'm a very big Pixar fan. There aren't too many studios that I'll just go see whatever they put out regardless of my interest, but Pixar is one of them. I mean, maybe a few other studios would be something like Marvel or DC or Star Wars, maybe A24, but for the most part, like unless it's a big franchise I'm invested in, I won't just see anything a movie studio makes. But in the case of Pixar, I just think they've always been such a genius and brilliant studio that made great movies, told emotional stories, and can relate to both kids and adults alike. I've heard a lot of adults over the years say that animation is just for kids and associate animated movies as something that adults can't enjoy as much, like it's made specifically for children. And I'm not denying that there are animated movies made exclusively for kids. I mean, you have stuff like the Emoji Movie and Norma the North and the upcoming Smurfs movie that's coming out. Like, those don't look like they're for adults, but there are plenty, especially from Pixar, where the adults will get just as much, if not more, out of the movie than the kids. And while I'd say Elio probably falls a little more in line with the kid-friendly fare than most stuff from Pixar, like Finding Nemo, Toy Story, or Monsters, Inc., it's still a well-made film that tackles themes and messages that are important, I think, for anyone to deal with and anyone to go through. I think these movies are very good ways to just kind of cope with them in different ways and kind of explore why you may be feeling a certain way. I mean, Inside Out was a great way of exploring emotions and maybe why you feel certain ways when you do, and I think it was a really poignant movie. In the case of Elio, and for anyone dealing with loss, Elio is about a boy who lost his parents at a young age and is now living with his aunt, but he feels very alone in the world. He just feels like there's no one there to really help him, and the theme this movie explores is, are we really alone in the universe? Then tying into this literal sense of loneliness and disconnect. But then Elio gets abducted by aliens and goes on this out-of-this-world adventure where he wants to feel a sense of belonging again. He wants to feel like he has friends and, a family. I mean, his aunt's there, but he doesn't really feel like his aunt is really taking to him the same way his parents did. And these ideas are probably my favorite part of the movie. It's a great idea. It reminds me of why Pixar is so good at what they do. They just find these very outlandish plots, like, a kid going on an out-of-this-world adventure, going to space and meeting aliens, they think he's like the leader of Earth. And then they find a way to make them very universally relatable to anyone who watches it, because they're just grounded in these themes that everyone goes through in life, and everyone has felt alone, and everyone has felt that they wanted to be loved and understood at some point in their lives, and Elio can relate to any of those people. A big section of this movie explores this idea of how Elio feels like people don't like him the way he is, and that maybe he's the problem, and it's something that really just connects, Elio to a lot of people. I think it just makes him very relatable. It's like, he just feels very alone and just doesn't feel like people understand him, and he's very loud a lot of the time. He's very, passionate about, what his interests are, and, in some ways, you may watch the beginning of the movie and be like, he's I don't know if he's annoying, but, he thinks he may be annoying, and it's just a very interesting way to do a character. But the way it's done here is just very touching, and there are a few scenes in the third act that hit the themes home very well. But a lot of this works because you like the characters. I cared about Elio, I cared about his aunt, I cared about Gordon, an alien Elio meets later in the film, and this is largely where the movie is at its best, and it's a good movie. Where I don't think it succeeds quite as much is the actual plot. Because in a lot of ways, it feels like the story here is kind of all over the place. Part of that may be because the movie was delayed over a year and was supposedly reworked a lot, including changing directors. I mean, if you remember, there was a teaser trailer that came out for this movie 2 years ago, and the two big changes I noticed is, one, the aunt in this film was originally actually his mother, so they got rid of the mother, made her an aunt, so the whole parent thing is new. And then the other thing is that Elio actually didn't want to be abducted by aliens in the original teaser trailer, but in this movie, he actively wants to be abducted. So these are just some interesting changes that I think really put a new perspective on the movie. And as far as I can tell, the changes made did enhance the film. So I think they actually made the right call. A lot of times when people like, if they make big changes like this in a movie, I feel like usually it's kind of like, oh, they got nervous, it wasn't going to work, and they just tried to fix it up. Like The Good Dinosaur had that. They tried to change it up a lot. I think that movie was probably made worse because of those changes. But in a case like Elio, I think they actually made the right call. I think they really did a good job of reworking it because the things that were new here are some of my favorite parts of the entire movie. But look, as far as the plot itself goes in this film, it just feels like it takes a long time for things to happen. And then by the time you get to the main antagonist and Elio meets Gordon, it feels kind of late. It just feels like, you've already gone through a large portion of the movie, and it's like it's a lot of setup for stuff, and like it's not bad, it's just like, but by the time you get to the real meat of the plot, you're just kind of like, how much of the movie do we even have left? Like, it feels like it's just a lot of time has passed. There's not too much time to really like explore the rest of this. It might have been trying to juggle a little too much with everything going on, but because of this, I think some characters, particularly Lord Grygon, who is the main antagonist, felt very underdeveloped and underwhelming as a result. And I think as a whole, it's a very predictable movie. You can kind of figure out where it's all going very early on, and it sticks to the Pixar formula a lot. If you watch a Pixar movie, you know kind of how it's going to go, generally speaking. I mean, some of them do, change things up and subvert expectations, but if you watch most Pixar movies that kind of have a general formula to them, this one sticks to that. But as I said, the characters and the themes, especially in the third act, which is easily my favorite part of the movie, really do a lot to save the film and just make it more memorable. And then, of course, the animation is as beautiful as you'd expect from Pixar. It's detailed, vibrant, and just stunning to look at. I thought a lot of it was really great. Pixar's always been amazing with animation. I mean, I've heard some people complain that the style is getting very repetitive, but I think this movie, like, especially because it's aliens, they do have, like, a different look to them. It's not just the standard, Pixar human look. But really beautiful animation. And the movie is also pretty funny at times. It's mostly chuckle humor, not really that much to like laugh out loud at. But I did think it had one subplot that takes place on Earth, which was both the funniest thing in the movie and the scariest. Not to say that this is a horror movie at all, but there is some imagery that you could argue would be some of the more horror-esque stuff Pixar has done. Not to like, I don't want to hype that up. It's not like a total jump scare or anything. It's just like, if you kind of know horror movies, there's something here that kind of like feels maybe a little inspired by something from maybe like a sci-fi horror film. But yeah, is Elio a great movie? Not really. Is it one of Pixar's best films? No, but it absolutely is enjoyable, and I think if you are a fan of Pixar's films, you'll enjoy this one too. I've heard a lot of people say this, and I kind of agree with this sentiment, but, a good Pixar movie is still better than a lot of the best from another studio, so take that as you will. Like, I haven't been quite as fond of Pixar's recent works as I was of their past stuff. Most of it's still pretty good, but the only things they really made lately that I was really happy about are Elemental and Inside Out 2. But this is around the same quality as stuff like Luca and Turning Red and Onward. So, just kind of expect that going in. Like, if you thought those were really good movies, you'll probably really like this too. If you thought they were more like mid-tier Pixar, I think that's kind of what you can expect from this. But overall, still a pretty good movie. It's a cute movie, and I enjoyed it. So I'm going to rate it a B. Alright, and next up is the live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. I'm not even going to sugarcoat this one. I thought this was a terrible idea when it was announced. Like, why make a live-action remake of a movie that came out only 15 years ago? The original movie came out in 2010. Why are we making a remake of that movie now? The same thing I'm going to say when Moana live-action remake comes out too, because that's even newer. I mean, the original came out in 2016. We're getting a remake come out like next year or the year after that. It's insane. Like, I get it for movies that are older, like The Little Mermaid and Cinderella and The Jungle Book, maybe Pinocchio or Snow White even. Like, none of those original movies came out when I was alive. So I'm very happy to watch them in theaters now and, like, kind of get that new experience and maybe a more modern take on it. And look, even if I was alive, it's still well past when they originally came out. That I'm kind of okay with them being remade. Like, if I was like an older person and like I watched the original in theaters, like it's still a long time away. That I'm like, okay, if you want to remake it, I'm okay with that. There's a whole bunch of generations that haven't seen it, so that's cool. But How to Train Your Dragon literally just had the third animated movie, like that closed out the trilogy, come out in 2019. That's not that long ago. I mean, it maybe feels like a long time ago, but it's really not that long ago. Like when we're talking about like who watched it, who grew up with it, and who's, watching this movie now. So, who is this movie for? Really only one generation of kids didn't grow up with the original How to Train Your Dragon. So, a lot of kids who didn't watch the original in theaters were probably old enough to see the newest one. And if you ask me, it's no coincidence that this movie is coming out only weeks after Universal Studios added a How to Train Your Dragon area to their theme park in Florida. So I think Universal really just probably mandated this movie to get made. It certainly wasn't the intention of a filmmaker that this movie get remade, which is frankly very disappointing. It just feels like it's a total cash grab marketing attempt to like, let's just boost some sales to our theme park. Let's get some more people there. And, maybe if people go into the theme park, they'll want to watch this new movie. It feels like, I mean, I get it. Like, I get the thinking from a business standpoint, but from a creative standpoint, it's just kind of bankrupt. And I don't know, it just feels like a very quick and lazy attempt to make some profit. And while they're at it, they already greenlit a sequel, so we'll be getting a How to Train Your Dragon 2 live action remake in a few years. And I actually really like that even less than this movie existing because even Disney, who has made way too many live action remakes, like at least they kind of had the thought process of, all right, we'll make one live action remake, but we're not going to greenlight a sequel that's a direct copy of the original. Like, we're not just going to remake the entire, like, I mean, most of Disney's sequels are like home video releases, so I don't think they'd be very good anyway, but like, when Lion King did very well, they had Mufasa come out, and that was like a different kind of movie. That was an original movie at least, so, I didn't like it, but at least it was original. Like, I wasn't like thinking, oh, geez, you made another live action remake copy. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'll reserve judgment till I see it and hope maybe they change some things up more, but I just really don't like that they're doing that. But here's the one thing that gave me some hope for this movie not being a disaster, and it's that the original co-writer and director, Dean DeBlua, came back to do this remake. And so at the very least, it's being made by someone who cares that it's done right. And I think he's even said in multiple interviews that, he knew this movie was going to get made. He was like, if it's going to be made, I want to be the one who does it. I want to make sure it's done right. And I can respect that, It's like he wants to make sure this movie doesn't suck and that it doesn't ruin the legacy of the original movies. And he's like, I'm sure he's very caring for it. He made the entire trilogy. I mean, he co-directed the first one with Chris Sanders, who is actually the same, they're both the same people who actually did Lilo and Stitch. So, the original, not the new one. So I think that's pretty funny, but I don't know. It's just an interesting thing that they actually got the original filmmaker to come back for this. Usually they always get someone new. So it's kind of interesting to see the original filmmaker come back and just kind of see like, oh, what are they going to do? Like it's their own movie. Why are they going to remake it again? Like, what are they going to do differently? And I don't want to go on for too long, so I'll just get to the point. DeBlua made the best and safest movie that he possibly could. He made a film that retains a lot of the heart from the original, while also retaining just about every scene from the original. Sure, he may have changed a few lines, added a few scenes, touched up a couple characters, maybe like a couple other little things here and there, but this remake is almost identical to how you remember the original, right down to the music and shot choices. Like a few little changes, it's almost like a Mandela effect kind of thing, where it's like, you may watch it and be like, is that different? Like, I don't know, is that the same? Most of it is very similar. I mean, I just rewatched the original, like, a few days before watching this one, and it was very fresh in my mind, maybe to a fault, because I was just so kind of, like, laser focused on how much they were going to capture what they did in the original that I was kind of, like, if an actor said a line differently from the original, I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I like that as much. So I think that might have actually been a problem. If you do see this movie, I actually think I'd recommend not watching the original right before or right after, because I think it kind of takes away a little bit from what this movie does. I'm going to try to kind of separate it as much as I can, but that's just the way it is. But this remake is essentially treated as a director's cut, extending some scenes, tweaking a few things here and there. And does that make this movie better than the original? I'd say unfortunately not. I still prefer the original by a landslide. Like, I don't even think it's really close even. But am I happy this is the version we got of this movie? Definitely. If this movie had to happen, which it seems like it did, it's at least a version I'm content with seeing exist. The live action remake from 2019 was a similar shot by shot remake where it was very similar, but it just didn't have the heart. It didn't have the care and the beauty of the original. It also cut stuff out, weirdly enough. Like, it actually removed some of the best stuff from the original while then adding a bunch of filler that didn't need to be there. How to Train Your Dragon is a much better executed version of that movie. It has the heart, it has the life of the original, just not quite as good. So there's really not that much to say here as a movie. Like, I'm not, because I'd just be reviewing the original at that point, basically. But as for the updates here, the new cast does a very good job. I thought Mason Thames as Hiccup and Gerard Butler returning as Stoic from the original are the standouts. They both did a very good job. I totally bought into their characters. Both did a great job. The CGI is fantastic for the dragons. They look truly lifelike. I was really blown away looking at them. I was like, wow, they actually did a really great job bringing these to life. Like, a lot of the designs were really good for live action. They just kind of felt like a more realistic version of these dragons. But they were very well done. I thought the execution was spot on. The flight scenes and the action are riveting and just really exciting to watch. I thought they were the one benefit to being live action is I think there is an added sense of I guess the realism kind of just brings them to life a little more. You're just kind of wow, that really feels a little more intense almost. And they kind of leaned into that, the intensity of things. So that was really cool. Some of the new dialogue and added character moments are good additions here. There are a few things in particular that I actually think did benefit from the original trilogy already ending, because now they're able to reference some things that would happen later on in other movies because they've already been planned out, and using them to enhance motives in this film was a nice touch. But to sum up this movie in a nutshell, just imagine the original movie, which is a near perfect film in my opinion, and imagine a lot of the things from that movie being a little less good. For me, some of that just came down to personal preference, and some of it was things I just simply liked better in the animated movie, which is normally the case for these remakes. But if you like the original movie, you will almost certainly enjoy this one too, because it has that same level of care and love put into it. Again, I think I probably should have separated watching this one and the original animated one a little more, because I think I was looking at them a little too closely. But I think for a live action remake, this was certainly one of the better ones that they've done. I think it at least has a lot of what you want from it, and it just kind of brings the original to life in a little bit of a different way, it's a different experience, but it's the same movie. And I think if you are going to watch this movie, I do have to say it should be in a theater, because otherwise I just can't think of any reason to really recommend this version over the original, besides just kind of seeing everything look a little more lifelike, a little more intense maybe, if you want maybe just a little bit of a different experience watching it. It's a little different, I guess, but I don't know. I just think the original's a better film. I certainly wouldn't advise watching this one before the original. But, if your kids watch the original film and you're like, oh, let's go see the new How to Train Your Dragon, you're not going to go wrong. I don't think you'll regret going to see it. It's just do you want to pay $20 a ticket to go watch a movie you've already owned at home and can watch on Peacock for free? I don't know. That's up to you, I guess. But again, if you are, go see it in theater, see it the biggest way possible, because at least you can benefit from all the nice imagery. I saw this movie in 4DX, and I thought it was the perfect kind of film for that format. I really felt like I was flying with the dragons at times, and that was awesome. You can't get that at home with the original movie, so that was a nice benefit. But honestly, that's really all there is to say about this movie. It's a good film, but not as great as the one it's based on. So I'm going to give this movie a B. Again, it's a very serviceable movie. It's pretty good. But just watch the original, you know? And that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.